I have no idea how to process all of this, and I know it's a lot to take in. It's been 2 months since D-Day, and my wife and I decided to try and fix our marriage. Here's some background. We've been married for more than 10 years and have a 4-year-old child who has a disability. Throughout our marriage, we've had good times and bad times. In 2016, things got really hectic for both of us due to work and school, and we ended up separating for 4 months. I wasn't the easiest husband to deal with in the early years, but I worked on my issues and was always open to counseling. I actively participated and took responsibility for my actions, and the therapists also held me accountable whenever problems arose. I was committed to making things better. In early March, I found out about her cheating when a text message popped up on her phone from the person she was having an affair with. The message said, "I love you back," implying that my wife told him she loved him. You can imagine how my evening went as I was hanging out with friends, trying to figure out what that could possibly mean. I decided to look up the guy and found out that he was one of her co-workers who worked under her. When I got home in the early morning, I prepared myself to check her phone, and unfortunately, what I found was not good. There were text messages expressing love and strong feelings for each other. They both admitted that they were struggling hard to resist their feelings. Now, let's go back to February 2022. My wife approached me during the beginning of my workday, which happened to be my work from home day, and told me she had something important to discuss. I agreed to listen, and then she suddenly revealed that she was considering getting a divorce. This completely caught me off guard, but I listened for the next 2 hours while I was supposed to be working from home as she went into detail about a list of 5 things that she absolutely wouldn't compromise on and 15 other points that were extremely important to her, which she wanted me to work on. It was really hard to accept everything that was happening, but I tried to handle it with grace, even though I was completely caught off guard by the talk of divorce. After that meeting, I spent the next year or so working on that list like it was the most important thing in my life, because it was. So you can imagine how shocked I was in early March 2023 when I came across the text from the person my spouse was having an affair with, a person I didn't even know about until then. What I've learned since then is that my wife had already given up on our marriage when she gave me that list. She didn't explicitly say it at the time, but now talking to her, it's clear that was the case, and she never told me. So I received this list, but she never followed up on it. Instead, she only complained to me about one item on the list that I hadn't completed. It all makes sense now. After discovering the affair, which she actually started in the same month she began talking about wanting a divorce, she started confiding in her colleagues at work, including her bosses, co-workers, and those who worked under her, about our struggling relationship and the possibility of divorce. According to my therapist, she was seeking support for a divorce, and then she unexpectedly found someone who not only supported the idea of divorce, but also became involved in an affair with her subordinate. It's worth mentioning that my wife primarily works from home because of COVID restrictions. She wasn't physically spending 40-50 hours a week with this guy. They mainly communicated through Zoom, but they didn't meet in person until July 2022 when they went on a lunch date. That seems to be the moment when my wife started realizing her feelings for the guy. They were already discussing and complaining about their respective partners, pointing out perceived flaws in our relationships. They started asking each other questions about their own relationships too. Soon enough, they began sharing personal secrets that their real partners were unaware of. Then, in August 2022, when their company required them to be physically present at the workplace 1 day a week, my wife claims they became inseparable. They would take breaks together, have lunch together, walk to their cars together, and even ended up with cubicles right next to each other. In early February, my wife made it official and quit her job, supposedly because she wanted to focus on our family. That's what she told me. Interestingly enough, that same day she confessed her love to her subordinate, and he reciprocated the feelings. For the following 5 weeks, they were deeply involved in texting, calling, emailing each other, and even went on at least one date. I'm not entirely sure if I caught it before it became physical, but there's a chance I did. I have text messages and emails that suggest it didn't necessarily become physical, but some of the details are so unbelievable that it's hard to believe it didn't. According to my wife, he was actively searching for a new apartment and was ready to leave his girlfriend of 7 years. Who does that unless they've already made some serious commitments with someone else? On the day I confronted my wife, let's call it D-Day, it was early morning. I had gathered enough evidence, including taking photos and emailing them to myself from her phone. She initially tried to lie about it, but once I informed her that I had documented her conversations, she shifted to blaming me. It was definitely an interesting time, but I managed to handle it calmly, acknowledged her challenges, and kept moving forward. She claimed that she couldn't cut off contact with the guy because they were collaborating on a creative project together, a book. Somehow, I found the presence of mind to suggest that she should at least go no contact until we could meet our marriage therapist, who could then decide the rules for communication. Surprisingly, she agreed to it. I also made it clear that she had to end things with the guy by the next day and gave her the chance to call them herself. I really wish I had been present during the phone call because I later found out that a lot of unnecessary stuff was discussed at that time. It turns out she spent the following 2 weeks trying to navigate having both her husband and affair partner at the same time. That's when I stumbled upon the contents of the book they were working on together. It was a novel they were co-authoring, and it revolved around a woman who was involved in a love affair with a younger man. The affair partner was 28, while my wife is 43. As if that wasn't enough, in the story, the husband of the main character passed away. There are even emails where she explicitly says that the husband in the book is based on me. Alone, it became clear to me that this was her way of playing out her messed up affair fantasies and getting rid of me through fiction. That's when I completely lost it. I decided to do some research on the guy and ended up finding his girlfriend. I reached out to her through an app, and she responded by thanking me for informing her. She had no idea about any of what was going on and wanted to know more. I also discussed the situation with my therapist, and despite it being a major mistake, I felt like I should be open with my wife about what I was doing. Tough when you want to share things with your spouse. But in reality, she turned out to be a cheating, lying, promise-breaking, and betraying person. A woman I contacted turned out to be incredibly kind-hearted, and she was devastated by her partner's infidelity. My wife was furious that I had found her and reached out. Interestingly enough, my wife had been secretly communicating with the affair partner behind my back, even after everything that had happened on D-Day. Eventually, my wife reached out to the affair partner based on both my demands and the instructions of our marriage therapist. But the AP told her to never contact him again, which was great. Reaching out to the affair partner's partner ended up breaking their connection, at least temporarily. After 5 weeks, I learned from her that she ended the relationship with him, and now he's nowhere to be found. Over the past 8 weeks, my wife has slowly started to open up. The truth only came out bit by bit, and usually only when I pushed her, like when I mentioned taking her phone and having an expert recover all the deleted texts. She has admitted to having developed feelings for the guy and that the emotional affair lasted for more than 8 months. Despite all this, she's now begging for reconciliation. We have made some progress in the past 2 months since D-Day, but it's still emotionally and physically devastating for me. One of the toughest things to accept has been realizing that my wife's sudden increase in desire for closeness in February was because she wanted to be close with this other guy. I was just a backup plan for her while she waited for him to make a move. Despite my wife's constant denial, I have discovered concrete evidence that contradicts her claims that their relationship wasn't physical. It has been a pattern of her lying about almost everything until I found proof. My wife has a history of experiencing bowel obstructions and has been hospitalized twice before because of them. Usually, these obstructions resolve naturally within 2 to 3 days of being admitted to the hospital. It's always been a significant concern. However, last week on Tuesday, she started experiencing severe symptoms of another obstruction, and I immediately took her to the hospital. During the initial blood tests, it was discovered that she was pregnant. Despite numerous attempts in the past, we had never been able to conceive naturally. Our son was the result of fertility treatments, and we had never experienced a natural pregnancy to our knowledge. So amidst the difficult situation of my wife's bowel obstruction, we now learn about her pregnancy, which limits the treatment options available for her condition. Eventually, she had to undergo surgery to remove a portion of her small intestine. Meanwhile, my family and close friends who are aware of the affair are questioning if I am the father of the child. Honestly, I have no idea. What I do know is that we both identify as Christians, and she has always been against terminations. I expressed my doubts about the child's paternity to her, and now she is discussing the possibility of terminating the pregnancy with anyone who will listen. After that, hey folks, here's the sequel to my saga. I decided to take her to court armed with damning evidence of her infidelity. I filed for divorce. You'd think it'd be hard, right? But here's the kicker. I felt this incredible weight lift off my shoulders. I felt liberated. Suddenly, I was free from the constant lies and deceit. It felt good to stand up for myself, to put myself first for once. But my soon-to-be ex-wife wasn't having it easy. Karma, I guess, has its way. She was pregnant, and the man she had an affair with was now refusing to accept the child. He too left her, and she was left alone to deal with the consequences of her actions. You might think I should have felt sorry for her, but I didn't. I felt relief. I felt vindication. Meanwhile, my ex-wife was suffering. Not only was she alone, but the man she had chosen over me was nowhere to be found. Her infidelity had cost her everything, her family, her stability, and her reputation. I can't deny there was a part of me that felt a dark satisfaction in seeing her reap what she had sown. As for the baby, it was her problem now. I didn't care if the child was mine or not. I had made my decision, and I was sticking to it. There was no room for doubts or regrets. I had given her my all, and she had thrown it away for a fling. There was no turning back now. As days turned into weeks, then months, I began to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Happiness. Genuine, true happiness. My heart felt lighter, my mind was clear, and for the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to the future. Sure, there were moments of weakness, moments of doubt, moments when I missed the woman I thought I had married, moments when I wished things could have turned out differently. But those moments were fleeting. They came and went, and I was left stronger, wiser, and more resolved. Looking back, I don't regret my decision. I'm in a better place now emotionally and mentally, and the best part, I have no resentment, no bitterness, just a sense of relief and closure. I'm done with the past, and I'm ready for the future, my future. And you know what? It looks pretty damn good. Second story. Some background information. I'm a 39-year-old man, and my spouse is a 36-year-old woman. We've been together for about 16 years and married for almost 14 years. We have 2 sons, aged 12 and 9. In the past, my wife and I have always gotten along really well. Of course, we've had our share of arguments or disagreements, but we've never had full-blown fights. We've always been able to communicate effectively with each other. My wife works as a hairstylist, and I work as a nurse. She also worked as an educator for a well-known brand and really enjoyed her job. As for me, I've been steadily advancing in my career, and about 4 to 5 years ago, I took on a director role. At that time, I was earning a decent income. Considering that my wife, who works as a hairstylist, often had to work in the evenings and weekends, she was missing out on a lot of time with our boys. That's why we made the choice for her to become a stay-at-home mom for our kids while still keeping her education role because she genuinely enjoyed it. However, when the COVID-19 pandemic arrived, her education job was no longer available either. Once things started to improve a bit with COVID, I received another promotion at work, so now I'm earning a really good salary, and we're not worried about her not working. In September 2020, our oldest child was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It was a major change in our way of life and caused a lot of stress, anxiety, and depression for both of us. As a result, we gradually drifted apart over the past few years. We completely stopped having date nights for the next 2 years because we were worried about leaving our child with others, but we're improving in that aspect now. During this time, we became emotionally distant and more like roommates than partners. Throughout all of this, I fully acknowledged that I wasn't the best husband. I neglected her emotionally and left her feeling alone, and I truly wish I could change that. But unfortunately, I can't. Although I was physically present, I wasn't there for her emotionally. Since she wasn't employed, I expected her to take care of our son's blood sugar at night because I had to wake up early for work. I also expected her to handle the household chores during the day. On the other hand, she started to resent me for not helping out with chores around the house, or assisting as much during challenging moments with our son's fluctuating blood sugar levels. As a couple who used to excel at communication, we completely stopped communicating altogether. We would exchange quick high fives at the door due to our busy work schedules and the hectic sports schedules of our boys. We no longer made time for each other. During all of this, my wife started playing a video game called Fortnite with our boys. She really enjoyed it and even played when the boys weren't around. She would stay up late at night after I had gone to bed and continue playing while also keeping an eye on our son's blood sugar levels. It reached a point where she would still be playing when I woke up, returned home from work, and went to bed. Through this game, she formed an online group of friends. Over the past 6 months, this group of around 5 to 6 people would consistently play together. This is where the act of cheating began. She developed a close friendship with a particular guy. I didn't find out about this until later, but she regularly chatted with him on Instagram. She even sent him a gift through the mail. Then she came up with a massive lie to visit him. She told me that one of her old friends from her teaching days was opening a new salon and asked if she could come over for the weekend to assist with the grand opening. My wife shared this story with me, and since I had no reason to doubt or mistrust her, I completely believed her. She drove a long distance of 10 hours to spend the weekend with this guy she met online. During her absence, for some reason, I accessed our iCloud account and noticed a bunch of recently deleted photos. My heart sank when I saw them because they revealed what was happening. Throughout the trip, she essentially turned off her phone and barely communicated with me or our boys for the entire 4 days she was away. In the end, she returned home, lied about the trip, and I confronted her about what was truly going on. It took a few hours, but she eventually confessed to her actions. She strongly insists that it was only a friendship and that nothing physical occurred, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because she left and spent the weekend with another man. The trip took place approximately 6 weeks ago. After the initial shock, something unexpected happened. We actually had some wonderful conversations. We opened up about how we ended up in our current situation and how our relationship reached this point. It was truly the best conversation we've had in years. Throughout all of this, she never tried to minimize what she did. She took full responsibility for her actions, and as a result, we made the decision to give it another try. We both expressed our love for each other and agreed that divorce was not what either of us wanted. During this time, I also started seeing a therapist because otherwise, I think I would lose my sanity after everything that happened. The one thing I asked her to do was to completely block any contact with this guy. She agreed and ended up deleting Fortnite and all her social media apps. Fast forward to 2 to 3 weeks ago, while we were driving to my son's baseball game, I noticed she had Snapchat on her phone. I asked her about it, and she quickly denied it. When we arrived at the game, I saw her logging out of Snapchat, so I walked away. She later found me, apologized, and handed me her phone, begging me to look through it. But I wasn't interested anymore. We argued about it that night, and I told her to leave the house. However, we eventually calmed down, and she ended up staying. The following weekend arrives. I decided to check out this guy's TikTok account, and guess who I find among his followers? My wife. This leads to another major argument where I tell her she needs to leave, and that I want a divorce. We slept in separate beds that night, but once again, I didn't follow through and push the issue of her leaving. Now let's jump to just a few days ago. I catch her playing Fortnite with this guy online. Later that night, I even look at her phone and see a message to another online friend saying, "I feel so stupid. I wish John would join so we could all play together." It sparks yet another huge fight, and this time I declare that I'm done. I pack up all my things, leave, and spend the night at my brother's place. I'm back sleeping at home. We had tickets for my youngest son's first MLB game on Saturday night, and we planned to go to an amusement park today, so for the boys' sake, we did these activities together. We had another important conversation this morning. She said that for this to work, I need to control my anger outbursts, which I agree. It's not healthy at all, and I should stop snooping through her phone, even though she previously said she had nothing to hide and left her phone unlocked for me to check if I wanted. Today, I reached out to my therapist, who referred me to an anger management group session, which I signed up for this Wednesday night. She assured me once again that she will cut off contact with him and stop playing Fortnite because it's not worth it. She mentioned her willingness to attend marriage counseling and insists that she doesn't want a divorce. I woke up 3 hours ago at 2 a.m. and went downstairs only to find her playing Fortnite on the couch. Although she wasn't playing with that guy, I believe she would have if he had been online too. Ironically, this morning, she explicitly stated that she would never play again. Yet here we are. I'm done arguing about it. I simply wished her good night and walked away. I'll be honest, ever since her return, I have been excessively controlling towards her. For the past 6 weeks, clearly, I've completely lost trust in her. I want to know every detail of her actions, where she's going, and who she's with. I'm uncertain about the outcome, but I have a strong sense of where we're headed. It's upsetting because I still genuinely love her, and I believe she still loves me, but I'm not sure if we're in love anymore. I'll provide updates along the way, but I'm not sure if counseling can help us at this point. We both need to be fully committed to making things work, and that includes ending all contact with that guy, which is something she should have done immediately. Unfortunately, it took me walking away and her losing me for her to finally realize that.